Hi guys, welcome back. This is our first ever video book. So I wanted to walk you guys step by step, especially those of you that have body composition goals. I know things can get a little crazy out there in terms of what you hear or how to apply things. Most of the education that I'm gonna give you guys probably have seen already somewhere in social media, somewhere in YouTube. But oftentimes I see that with my patients, what they really need, it's a translation of that knowledge into actual application. So today I'll be walking you through the introduction chapter of our video book and just kind of walk you in terms of what you will need to know for that first step. I know most of you guys have already gotten gym memberships, have gotten already started to become active, which I'm super, super proud of you. Congratulations for already taking a step towards better health. But now I just kind of want to fine tune and come in and help you guys a little bit more. So today we're going to be talking about how does fat loss happen, okay? And we're going to go a little bit into label reading. The reason we do that is because I want to make sure that you guys are well equipped before you guys even know your macronutrient breakdown or anything of the sort. I want you guys to be well equipped to know where to get those foods in the grocery store and how to decipher which foods are good for your or best for your goals, right? Um, then we will go over what foods fall into the proteins, carbs, and fat category. Okay. And a lot of the times, this is where a lot of people get a little bit confused as to what's a carb, what's a protein, what's fat. So I'm going to outline a few of the general ones. Remember, if you have a specific cultural background, I'll try to throw in some of the things that fall into those different cultures. But if you have a specific questions, by all means, reach out to us. We are here to help you guys. And also, we're going to go over when we measure, right, what we want to improve. We want to see what type of measurements we're using. We definitely want to make sure that we're using something that's going to yield the most accurate results, right? So, whether you're actually testing your body fat percentage or you're using the weight on the scale, I want to show you how to properly utilize that and what happens when you may not see quote unquote change or a different type of change that you wish you would see on the scale, right? And then, like I said, I'll go over some of the cultural foods just to kind of give you guys a little bit more guidance in terms of that because here as wellness, we're really, really excited to just kind of help people from all cultures, right? So I definitely want to make sure that I equipped you guys well with that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and start over how does fat loss happen, right? A lot of the times, a lot of people ask me like, okay, Carla, like, well, if I lose weight, does that mean I'm losing body fat percentage? And how does that even happen? Oftentimes we've heard the whole notion of hey, I want to lose X amount of weight, right, in terms of pounds, but we haven't really determined what that's going to look like in terms of our body. So because of that, I want to give you guys an insight as to just because you drop in weight does not mean you change your body composition. A lot of the times, because we don't know how this applies, we often can end up with a body type that we don't really like or want. Back in the day, right, I was a soccer player, so I was training like one, but I wanted to look like a ballerina, but I was eating like a linebacker, right? So definitely your nutrition and your fitness have to align with your body composition goals, okay? So let's look into this a little bit more in terms of like how does fat loss actually happen? Okay, so remember, whenever you're trying to lose weight in the form of fat, we have to create a calorie deficit, right? So if you look in here, this is what we call the thermodynamic scale, right? And you're like, Carla, what is that? Okay, don't let the names kind of scare you. It's really really a simple concept, but it does take a long time to kind of understand, and that's okay. That's why we recorded this video. So if you guys need to watch it over and over and over again, you guys can do so. So with the food energy, right? So that's what calories are. When there's more energy come to our body than what is being outputted, okay, this is when weight gain happens, right? When the energy that comes in via food, whether it be solid or liquid, is around the same as the energy that you output, okay, this is where you maintain your weight, right? This is where you might fluctuate up or down, plus or minus 3 pounds, in a given, month, but you pretty much are staying the same the whole time. Now, weight loss is when the energy that's coming in is less in less amount, right? Than the output that's coming out. And therefore, that's what we create a calorie deficit. That's what this means, right? Now, if you are more of a numerical person, here's what I mean by that. So let's say that we need 2,000 calories, right? In order to maintain, okay, our body fat percentage, our lean mass. What does this mean? This means that for every activity that I do, whether it be exercise, moving around throughout the day, or whatever it may be, right? My body needs this amount of calories to sustain my weight at this at that weight, whatever that weight may be. And we're just going to use, like I said, a random example, right? So let's say at 130 pounds, we need 2,000 calories, right? Now, a calorie deficit means that anything below those 2,000 calories, so whether it be 1,900, 1,800, 1,700, 1,600, whatever that may be, that is going to be a calorie deficit. Now, yes, if you consume 1,900 calories, you will lose weight because you are at a calorie deficit. But yes, if you consume 1,600 calories, right, you're going to lose fat faster. This is where I caution a lot of people, especially the women, because women tend to go very, very low on their calories when they really, really want to get at it. And that's actually not really good for the female human body. Okay. Our bodies, because they're made to reproduce, they can get very finicky, meaning they're very sensitive to the lack of energy, to the lack of food, right? So that's why here at Various Wellness, we're going to show you how to calculate your energy needs for whatever body type you want to have, right? In order to lose the fat in a safe and healthy manners. There is such thing as losing weight too fast, and whenever that happens, a lot of things can get disrupted in your body. Let alone that your body doesn't have time to adapt, and this is how a lot of times people end up with unnecessary like flabby skin. This is where we don't want to do this. But essentially, there is a threshold where you don't want to go below that threshold. This threshold varies by individual because not everybody has the same amount of lean mass or the same amount of muscle, right? And not everybody has the same amount of activity. Some people are way more active than others, so therefore they need more calories, even to lose body fat percentage, right? But essentially, this is what a calorie deficit is. A calorie surplus is when you're above those maintenance calories, right? So if you're at 2,100, 2,200, right? That's what we consider a calorie surplus. And yes, when this happens, weight gain will happen. Okay. So this is if you're not wanting to gain weight, right? You don't want to be in here. Now, let me tell you guys that just because you lose weight does not mean you're going to lose body fat, right? Because remember, there's 4 different types of weight. If you guys don't know what those are, go ahead and look at our previous videos. And we'll go ahead and explain those. So for this, what determines whether you're going to be losing body fat or not, it's going to be the macronutrient distribution of these calories. So let's, for example, say I'm going to be at a 1,700 calorie deficit. Then how many carbs or how much protein or how much fat I consume or I break this into, that's going to determine my body composition. Okay. Oftentimes you guys have heard of the term skinny fat. These are where people are very, very slim and slender, but they have a high body fat percentage, right? Often these people consume more carbs and more fats than somebody who is more leaner and more toned. If you're kind of going towards that more lean and toned definition, we're going to concentrate on having more carbs and more protein because those are the 2 things, especially if you're pairing it with a workout regimen with resistance training, which is what we recommend in order to get that lean and toned look, right? That's what's needed for that type of sport or that type of exercise. Okay, we'll get into that a little bit later down in the next chapters, but this is just to kind of guide you guys a little bit more. Okay. So in essence, remember guys that in order to create a calorie deficit, we need to consume less calories, right? And there is a threshold. So for women, you should never consume less than 1,200 calories, right? And for men, we should never consume less than 1,600 calories. These guidelines are if your body is free of disease and if you have no clinical condition. If you have a clinical condition in which now your metabolism has been altered, go ahead and reach out to your doctor, okay? And we definitely can take you in with a referral to guide you through that because your way of losing body fat is going to be just a little bit differently. That doesn't mean it can't happen. It definitely can, but we just got to take a different way around it. Okay. Up next, label reading. Okay, this is where we actually start acting on our goals. Before we break you down and we give you guys the foods that you'll need, I want to show you guys where you want to get these foods. A long time ago, I had a lot of really good mentors. Shout out to Mia Finnegan, who was 3-time Miss Olympia, was actually one of my mentors back in the day. And she used to really, really give me the concept of how to grocery shop. And I love the way she described it. She taught me that we want to buy our groceries on the foods that are around the perimeter of the store. When you enter the store, if you think about it, all the live stuff or all the quote unquote less processed stuff is by the walls, right? Your produce, dairy, going to be along this aisle, all of your proteins, your meat, right by the fridges, and so forth. Then you might have some stuff here with your yogurts or just different, even more proteins and more meats. Okay. Now the stuff in the aisles, this is where this comes in handy. This is our stuff that has usually a label, okay, nutrition facts label, and this is what we're going to cover next. Usually, the things that don't have a label, such as fruits, veggies, proteins, and so forth, these are what we want to make most of our foods that we eat and we consume on a daily basis. But yes, we definitely we're going to consume some foods, maybe like breads or mueslis or so forth. And these foods you're going to find in the aisle. So this is how you decipher whether these foods are going to be good for you or not. Okay. So let's pretend we're going to go grocery shopping, and we're going to go ahead and put every food that has a label through this test. If it passes these two checkpoints, then they can go ahead and go into your shopping cart, okay? And if it doesn't, we're going to put it back and we're going to try to find the most economic thing that passes those checkpoints, but that is also falls within our budget, right? We definitely want to keep you guys sensitive when it comes to that. Okay, so for the first checkpoint are the ingredients, right? If a food has sugar in the first 4 or 5 ingredients, we don't want to consume that food. Not because sugar is bad, but because added sugar means added calories. And if you're trying to be in a calorie deficit, remember that added calories is counterproductive, because we definitely don't want to go towards the calorie surplus part. We want to go towards the calorie deficit part. So we want to consume less calories, but remember, less calories does not necessarily mean less food. Okay. Now, ingredients are divided by commas. So if you guys see right here, there's a comma right here, and there's a comma right here, right? But things that are in parentheses or in brackets are what we call sub-ingredients, right? So let's find out the first 4 ingredients in this one. So the first ingredient is going to be that bulgur wheat, but then there's a comma. Sauce is the next ingredient. But notice how there's an open parentheses, and the parentheses don't close until all the way down here, right? So this is where our third ingredient is going to be lentils, okay? And our fourth ingredient is going to be corn. So I did not see sugar in the first 4 to 5 ingredients, right? Now, some of you might be, Carla, but what's that sugar right there in, before that corn, okay? So now this means that sugar is part of the sub-ingredient to sauce, okay? And here we find a few sub-ingredients. So for example, the sauce is made out of water, half and half, but notice how there's brackets in here. This means that the milk and the cream are what make up the half and half, okay? The sauce is also made of Parmesan cheese, which is made out of pasteurized skim milk, cultured salts, and enzymes. If you see sugar as part of the sub-ingredients, I'm not going to completely X this out, because remember, by our dietary guidelines, our research says that we are allowed a little bit of added sugars without it affecting our health. Remember, this is not going about cold turkey and cutting out sugar altogether, right? It's knowing how much and when to consume things, right? So I'm going to put this on hold because it's not an actual ingredient. Now, if it was the actual ingredient, I'll show you I'll show you some of my favorite brands that I used to consume back in the day and some of the alternatives that I've consumed, right? Now, just because a brand has a specific product that may not fall within these guidelines doesn't mean that it won't have a substitute product that will. So make sure you guys check different flavors and different stuff to make sure that, what you're consuming is pretty good for you, for your goal, right? Remember, no food is bad. It's just whether this food is going to get us closer to our goal or further away from our goal. Okay, moving on next. So since I didn't see sugar in the first 3 to 4 ingredients, I'm going to go ahead and say, yep, first checkpoint is passed. Now I'm going to go over here. Now this is where I look at the nutrition facts label. This is what it looks like, okay? And don't worry so much about the daily value for now. We're going to concentrate just on a few key things in here. Primarily, we want to make sure that we understand the difference between serving size and serving per container, right? A lot of these times, these little things right here can kind of trip us up a little bit and can kind of confuse us, right? So what this means is that the serving size is 1 1/4 cup. So if I were to spread out all the containers into 4 different serving sizes, right? And I can see 4 is right here. That's what each one of these numbers are for. So if I were to consume this whole container, I would have to multiply every number by 4, and that's how much is in the full 4 container, right? This will come in handy later on when we show you guys how to pair up your foods for actual macronutrient composition. You can get a little tricky, and I feel like this is where people get frustrated because they don't understand, and they just go, I can't do this, and you kind of lose momentum because nobody really took the time to explain that to them. So going forward, the next thing we want to concentrate is on the sodium. Okay, don't worry so much about the fat. Just for now, the only time where we would want to concentrate on this is if you're predisposed to some kind of heart disease, in which case, go ahead and reach out to us and we'll let you know what the parameters are for that. But outside of that, let's focus on the sodium. We recommend that by FDA guidelines and by the dietetic guidelines, right, that we consume low sodium foods. Why is this? The reason for this is because if everything that we consume has sodium in it, over time, salt, right, can make us retain water. And this puts a lot of pressure in your arteries, which over time can lead to hypertension, right, high blood pressure. And we definitely don't want to do that. We want to try to get to this fat loss goal as healthy as possible. So what we're going to do in here is we're going to look at the sodium amount and we're going to make sure that per serving, okay, it's 140 milligrams or less. Okay. If something is above 140 milligrams, like it is in here, right, we are going to be like, okay, maybe this is going to be like a once in a while food, but not an everyday food, right? And depending if, like I said, if you were really, really trying to stick to lower sodium guidelines because you were maybe in pre-hypertension or your doctor recommended that you want to lower your sodium intake, we definitely wouldn't want to purchase this product, right? Oh, and by the way, the FDA guideline for low sodium is 140 milligrams or less, right? So that's why we want to consume that amount or less. Okay, fiber. Fiber is the next thing that we want to concentrate on. Fiber is your friend when it comes to fat loss. Why is this? Okay, let me explain why fiber is so important. A lot of you guys might have heard this, but maybe nobody took the time to explain. Fiber delays what we call the emptying rate of the stomach. Okay, I'm going to do my best to draw. So let's say you have your stomach right here, right? And two. Okay, and then here you have your intestines, two. Okay, all right. Okay, as food passes down from your esophagus down to the stomach, from here, there's a little hole, a little sphincter, right? That closes and opens and lets stuff that go from your stomach into these intestines, and it drips by tiny little drips, right? Tiny little drips. When you consume fiber, the dropping of the contents of the stomach slows down. What does this mean? This means that the food lingers around here a little bit longer, and because it's slowing down that process, you don't feel hungry for a longer period of time than if you were to not add fiber in it, right? That's why we recommend that people that have a fat loss goal, we include as much fiber as they can in their diet. Well, as much is relative because there's actually a guideline, okay? For men, we recommend that it's 30 to 35 grams per day. For women, we recommend 20 to 25. Okay, if you're using a tracking app like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer, we definitely encourage that you look to see on a daily basis how close you're getting to these numbers, right? Because those are going to be indicators that you're doing very, very well. Okay. Whenever something has 2.5 grams of fiber or more, it's considered a good source of fiber. And whenever it's 5 grams or more, it's considered an excellent source of fiber. Now, be very careful because we definitely want to use our brains and not just be like, oh, okay, like, does this have enough fiber or not, right? We want to see if, in fact, this thing is supposed to have fiber. Let me give you an example. Let's say I get some packaged chicken breast and I see that it has fiber. Well, chicken is a protein. It shouldn't have fiber in it, right? If I had read the ingredients first, it might have had some kind of cornstarch in it, or maybe some kind of thickener, some flour, and I'm like, well, why are they thickening up my chicken with flour, right? That's maybe not what I want to buy. And chicken should not have any fiber in it, right? That's when I'm using my brain to make sure that things that are supposed to have fiber in them, and things that are not don't, right? Now, here, when it comes to total sugars and added sugars, here is what nobody probably told you, and I'm going to give you guys such a break on this one because I want you guys to master this. This is where a lot of my patients get this relief of like, oh my gosh, I can't have a little bit of sugar. Like, yes, you can, right? Not a lot, right? But we want to show you how to incorporate things. Now, with sugars, what you want to look for is the added sugar amount. The total sugar can really not matter, because if the total sugar comes from a good source of sugar, let's say fruits, right? That sugar has a different effect than actual just plain cane sugar or any other added sugars like honey, agave. Yes, those are still healthier sources of sugar, but at the end of the day, added sugars means added calories, right? So we definitely want to watch this. So here is my spew. Over the years, I've coined a little rule that I tell my patients when it comes to added sugars. And these seems to work very, very good in terms of what they want to consume. Okay, if something has anywhere from 0 to 5 grams of sugar, okay, per serving, you can consume this food on a daily basis. Okay, remember guys, you guys are making small changes. I know there's some of you guys that are going to, tell me, oh my gosh, that's crazy. You should not have this on a daily basis, right? But if you've never tried to change anything in your diet, right, or in your way of eating, and you're not just changing for the first time, small steps, right? I always tell my patients are permanent steps, right? Don't try to go cold turkey, because very rarely does that actually work. The science actually shows us that people who make small changes over time are the ones that succeed in losing weight and keeping it off. Okay. Now, if something has 5 grams of added sugar to about 10 grams, okay, this is something you would want to consume once per week. If something has 10 to 15 grams of sugar, okay, this is something that you would want to consume maybe once per month. And more than 15 grams, right? This is something that you would want once a year, or in a very rare blue moon, aka your birthday, right? Yay, birthday cake. Now, here is the trick with this, guys. Be very, very careful, and I'm going to give you guys an example of how I often see this advice being misapplied. Not necessarily because people want to, kind of fall out of the guidelines, but because once again, nobody took the time to explain this to them. Okay. So let's say I have a granola bar, and if I'm in a granola bar that I really, really like, and I say, okay, we can only consume this once per week, right? Let's say it has more than 10 grams, or about, 5 to 10, right? Let's say I consume the granola bar in here, right? But then I consume a little piece of chocolate, right? And that piece of chocolate also fall into this guideline, right? And so I'm gonna have that little piece of chocolate here, right? And then I'm gonna consume something that has maybe a little bit of juice, right? And I'm just gonna really stick to my 8 ounces. I'm gonna dilute it, right? But I'm gonna have some juice here. And let's say on Thursday, I see that I'm gonna have a can of soda, because I'm trying to really, really lower my sugar intake, right? So I'm gonna have half a can of soda. Okay. And let's say later on, I want to have half of a donut or something, or some donut holes. Okay. Now this, guys, you would not want to do, because you're not having something once per week. You're having something every day that you're supposed to be having once per week, right? That's why I say, if you really want to consume something on a daily basis, then you go ahead and just stick to this 0 to 5 grams of added sugars per day from the label, and you only purchase this from the store, right? Because when it comes to that, if you do that, let's say if you guys go out for froyo or something once a week, then yes, then let's say, I consume my froyo here, but I didn't consume anything of this, then that's okay. So be very, very careful on how you guys apply this information, right? Okay, moving on. In terms of the protein and in terms of all of this, like I said, don't worry. But if something falls into these guidelines, you want to make sure that, yep, checkpoint 1 is passed. Yep, checkpoint 2 is passed. And this food can now go into our cart. Now, you tell me, well, Carla, what if a few things are okay, but not everything's right? So like, let's say we say, okay, we found out that something is good in our fiber, right, and good in our sugars, but a little high on the sodium, right? But this is maybe, once again, this is something that you might want to consume once per week or once to twice per week, but no more than that, right? We want to make sure we use our own judgment of that, right? My rule of thumb, the thing that I personally do is I really just concentrate on the sugar and the sodium, right? Because I'm going to really concentrate on my fiber for my veggies and my fruits, right? I make sure to have either a veggie or a fruit at every serving, every snack, and every meal. And I guarantee that you'll get to that, goal, whatever your goal may be, of fiber, but whether you're a man or a woman, because it really will happen, right? I've seen that over and over time. All right, so now you guys know how to grocery shop. Remember, use the shop most of your stuff on the parameters on the outside walls of the store, and then whenever you need to look at a label, look at our nutrition label reading guidelines. Okay, remember this is a video, so you guys can pause and rewind and kind of go over and take this with you guys to the store. Now, let's say in our next week, in our next video on chapter 1, we're going to go over your macronutrient calculation and how to turn that into actual food. But before we do that, I want to go over which foods fall into which category. You guys have already seen that in a lot of our videos, so I'm just going to break this down a little bit quicker. Okay. I will also do a hyperlink at the bottom in the description to another video with a little bit more thorough explanation on this. I'm going to go over carbs and then your fats. Okay. So your proteins are going to be any type of meat, such as red meat, like beef, pork, okay, poultry, chicken, or turkey, right? Any type of seafood will fall into this category. Also, from the dairy aisle, anything that has a cottage cheese, right? Cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, not the regular yogurt. The regular yogurt is actually more carbohydrate based than protein based. So the Greek yogurt is the only one. Egg whites and not the whole egg, because the whole egg contains fat, and that makes it what I call a hybrid food. We'll talk about hybrid foods later. But I want to make sure that we don't misunderstand what that whole egg is. A whole egg is a hybrid protein between fat and protein. Okay, we'll go over this later. From the plant, so your plant proteins, right, are going to be your tofu. All right, anything that falls into this category will be that, right? And then there's also your protein powders and your protein bars. Be very careful with your protein powders and bars, guys. I normally tell people the magic number that you want to see in here is 20 grams of protein or more. Okay, if it doesn't have this in the number on the protein if the number in the carbohydrate outdoes the protein amount, then it's more like a carbohydrate bar. You'll see some bars that claim to be protein bars, but it'll have the carbohydrate amount be like 30 and the protein be 15. In that case, it would be more of a carbohydrate bar rather than that, right? And that's another thing to know, guys. Whatever number is the highest number on the food label, that's what we're going to be considering that food. For example, let's look at the total fat here is 4, right? The total carbohydrate here is 46. The protein here is 11. Out of all these numbers, 46 is the highest. So this food is going to be considered a carbohydrate. And sure enough, it's bulgur, right? It's a type of wheat. So we definitely want to make sure we label it as such and we understand that this food is going to be my carb for that meal, right? Okay. Going back. Okay, so now your carbohydrates are going to be any grain, rice, corn, millet, farro, barley, okay, all of those, right? And also we're going to have any product derived from these things, right? So like rice cakes, corn tortillas, all those things, any type of flour that is made from, oatmeal will also fall into this category, right? Okay, so oatmeal flour, right? All those are going to be carbohydrates, right? Then you have your legumes. Legumes are going to be any bean. For example, garbanzo bean, black beans, pinto beans, right? All of those beans, right? Also in this category, you're going to have your lentils, okay? Awesome. Then we have our fruits. All of your fruits are going to be carbohydrates except for 2 fruits. This is going to be your coconut. The white fleshy part of the coconut is actually a fat, and avocado. And this is actually also another fat. And we're going to go over how to kind of distribute our foods in terms of this, guys, because we definitely want to make sure that we understand that even though if we eat healthy fats still have 9 calories per gram. And this is how a lot of your salads can end up being very high calorie, right? And just because it's healthy does not mean it's going to lead towards fat loss, right? Be very careful with that concept. Also in here, all of your veggies, okay? These are going to be your broccoli, your cauliflower, your carrots, right? Your potato, any kind of green vegetables, any root is also going to fall into this category. You're also going to have your herbs like veggies, like your cilantro, right? Your parsley and all that stuff. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. Okay. Now from here, we're going to have your fats. Okay, which foods are going to fall into the fat category? So any type of oil. Okay, grapeseed oil, olive oil, okay, any type of oil. Now, why do I mention these two at the beginning? A lot of the times people ask me which one is better to cook with. For the sake of health, right? Grapeseed oil is the oil that has the highest, what we call smoke point, okay? So this smoke point, right, is going to be how resistant to heat an oil is. And grapeseed is the one that's the most resistant because it turns less toxic under heat than all the other oils, right? For my salads, I'm definitely going to use my olive oil because research shows that that is one of the healthiest oils to consume for heart health. Okay. Now, in here, you also have your butter and margarine and any other kind of solid fat, right? So, like your lard, right? It's going to be here, your Crisco, all that stuff. As mentioned earlier, avocado and coconut are going to be your fruits that are fats. Seeds fall into this category: pumpkin seed, sunflower seed, any kind of seed, chia seed, right? Black seed and all that stuff. And lastly, all of your nuts, okay? Peanuts, walnuts, almonds, right? All that types of nuts, and also all nut-derived products. So, for example, from peanuts, right, you can get your peanut butter, your almond butter, right? Walnuts. A lot of the times people used to confuse nuts with a protein. Now, nuts have protein, right? But they have more fat. If you look at that nutrition label, that fat number per serving will be higher than any other of the carbohydrate or protein amount, right? And here you will also have your nut milks, right? Your cashew milk, your almond milk, right? All of that stuff is considered a fat. So these are going to be your macronutrients in which foods fall into this category. Okay. Like I said, there's another section of hybrid foods. And hybrid foods are going to be your foods that are a 1-to-1 ratio of two macronutrients, whether they be carbohydrates, proteins, or fats. Let me give you an example. Hummus. Hummus has an almost 1-to-1 ratio per serving of carbs and fat. We have the soybean. Soybean have in almost 1-to-1 ratio of protein and carbs. Okay. Kefir or kefir, as some people like to call it. So this is going to be an almost 1-to-1 ratio, right? If the low fat kefir, it's going to be of proteins and carbs. Okay. You have your low fat mozzarella, your low fat cheeses. Okay. These are going to be almost a 1-to-1 ratio of protein and fat. Okay, so why do I mention these? Because if you're trying to develop a meal with this, we have to take in consideration which family or which macronutrient they come from. A little later down the line, I'm going to show you how to implement these in foods and snacks if you guys want to include them. Okay, let's keep on going. We're almost there. We're almost there. Okay, what you measure improves. Okay, and measuring your body fat versus weighing yourself. What are we going to do? I highly recommend that you guys get your body fat measured. Okay, and let me show you why. Something that I often show my patients, right? So for example, if you look at the different body fat percentages, right? Oftentimes we look at it and be like, oh, okay, do you want to be at the 15 and 17%, the 20 to 22%? Because this is what we see in the mirror, right? We don't see the scale number. So a lot of the times by knowing where we want to go, right, we can determine what, let's say if we're at the 30% body fat percentage, right? And we want to be at the 22, well, then we can track it when we're 29, 27, 28, and therefore not be discouraged, right? And this is really important, guys, because when you work out, right, that weight on the scale can be thrown up by a lot of different things. That number on the scale is the sum of four different types of weight, right? So we want to definitely make sure that we understand that. And this is why I say that this goes especially for the women, men too, but women tend to kind of beat themselves up for this a little bit more. So let's say you start off at, I'm just going to use a random number, 150 pounds. And remember, your weight is going to be the sum of your fat mass or your fat weight, your lean mass or your muscle, okay, and your water. I'm going to put H2O, okay, and then your bone. Okay, your bone weight is not really going to change. We lose bone over time, but we lose it at a very, 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 very slow rate. So it's really hard to track, bone density, by just weighing yourself on the scale, right? Now, water fluctuation, there are some scales that do give you all these numbers and you can use them to track progress, but in my opinion, they're not the best or the most accurate. They are getting pretty accurate out there. I'm not going to say they're not, but I would say that really just concentrate on the other two, right? Let's say 20 pounds, okay? Of this is I'm going to use my calculator to show you guys in. Okay, so let's say 20 pounds of your 150 are here. Let's say 80 pounds, right, are of fat. Let's say 10 pounds are of water, okay? And let's say 40 pounds are of lean mass, right? Over time, especially if you start working out for the very first time in a long, long time or ever, right? Your body will actually increase a little bit of water, okay, retention, because water is needed for what we call protein synthesis or the renewal of muscle tissue, right? So it could be that, let's say you increase this to, by 50 pounds, but you actually drop, right, this to 70 pounds. Well, the scale number at the end of that month is still going to read 150. And you're like, wait a minute. I've been eating healthy and I've been doing all of this. Why am I still 150? Well, that's because these two weights changed, right? This one went up by 10 pounds and this one went down by 10 pounds, right? So it definitely can't happen. So that's why I say that, in my opinion, let's just measure the body fat percentage in the skin floor caliper methods, right? We're going to have them available to you guys. And there's a lot of places where they do them across the country, right? Or you can also do a DEXA scan. Those are very feasible and very doable nowadays. And just look at this number because this is the number that you want to track down. I often tell my patients that, they see that 150 not move and tell them, don't worry, I'm measuring your body fat and your body fat is going down. Sure enough, by the third or fourth month, this number starts to quote unquote finally come down, and it comes down very rapidly, right? That's because your body's getting very efficient at this muscle repair process, okay? So that's another reason why I tell people, do not use the scale as the sole form of measurement. You can use it, just not the only form of measurement. Here's another reason why, guys. Okay, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna explain this cool little chart to you, especially if you're a woman, okay? Your weight will fluctuate by week depending on where your cycle is, okay? Whenever your estrogen is the highest, that's when your water weight will go up and your water retention will be higher, right? So if you were to weight yourself, right, and let's say for the sake of this, we're gonna say this is week 1, this is week 2, this is week 3, and this is week 4, okay? You wanna make sure that for example, here, we see that in week 2, estrogen is high and it's not high in week 1. This is where in the second week, if you weigh yourself, you might be, let's say we're still using that 150 pound, right? And here you might be 150 and here you might be 52. And you're like, what the heck? What's going on? I'm not losing weight. Then you finally see like 149. You're like, woohoo, right? But then you come up here and it's starting to come up again and you're like 153 and you get discouraged, right? Because by the end of the month, you're heavier than you were before. We see this happening. If you want to track your weight, I'm not saying that you can't, compare, right? Especially if you're using like an app to track your menstrual cycle, you have to compare week 1 of month 1 to week 1 of month 2, right? So week 1 in January to week 1 in February, week 2 in January to week 2 in February, week 3, right? And then not compare them from week to week because this will be, very, very different, right? So I tell people, and this is very complicated to some people. They're like, I don't want to weigh myself. I tell them, don't. By the end of the month, right? You can just measure your body fat percentage, and we go ahead and do that. If you guys need just the body fat measurement session with us, we definitely have that available for you guys. So please reach out to us because we definitely will have them throughout the year. But if you are just wondering and would like for us to measure you guys, we definitely can do that for you guys. Okay, now, last and not least, we're going to go over cultural foods. Okay, so what, for example, if you say, Carla, what if I'm from an Asian background, Hispanic background, right? Any kind of other background, right? Well, your cultural foods, these are very, very important, guys. You grow up with these, so not including them in there may be kind of sad. You might actually have like feelings of sadness for not being able to include both rice and beans. You can. Remember, you just have to consume them in the right amounts and at the right time. So some of the foods, as I mentioned, if you're of Hispanic or Latino background, they're going to be your rice, your beans, your tortillas, your yuca, a lot of different things, right, that fall into this category, right? And that's okay. Just reach out to us because this is where we can get really complex, right? In the Asian culture, we're going to have a lot of your noodles, right? A lot of your rice. These are going to be carbohydrates, right? And knowing how to decipher the labels is going to be very important as to, once again, get you guys closer to that goal. So remember, guys, we have that Ask a Dietitian live workshop the third Friday of every month. So please send us your questions. DM us ahead of time. If you guys have any questions, we will answer them in there, and we're going to also post a recording here back in our YouTube channel. So like I said, reach out to us because we want to help you guys as much as we can. But essentially, this is what you want to learn during chapter 1. Okay, so just go over, make sure you understand which foods fall into the protein category, fats and carbs, right? You understand your nutritional label reading when you're going to go grocery shopping, because this is what we're going to apply for next week, right? And then you understand that fiber is super, super, super important to consume, and understand what a calorie deficit is. So next week, we're going to walk you down on how to calculate your own macronutrient and energy breakdown, okay? Because not everybody needs the same amount of calories. And the biggest mistake that I see some people make, and to make sure that you guys don't make it. Well, I hope this helped, guys. I'm so happy that I'm, able to give you guys some insight. Please let us know if you guys have any questions. Remember that this channel is for you guys. I'm just here answering, and these all came as a request from some of you guys that are our listeners. Remember, hit that subscribe button and hit on that like button if you guys like the content that you see. And cheers to a happy and a new 2024. And blessings to you guys all. Have a good day.